Hello and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Boilermaker Lounge. I am Sam Springer, joined by Grant, Flora Grant. We have changed our post or our off season schedule to be Tuesday, Friday rather than Monday, Friday. Makes it a little bit easier for us with a couple more days to be able to put some good content out for everybody to enjoy. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Yeah. Ready to ready to close the chapter on April and move into May and
Almost there.
get another week closer to the start of basketball season. Got
Any
several of them to go.
Anytime we can flip that calendar, we're getting closer to the October start of the basketball season. Uh, we're gonna start talking about a roster evaluation. We're gonna go through the roster by class. We decided that was the easiest way to go about trying to do a roster breakdown. But we're going to talk about the freshmen and redshirt freshmen on the roster for next season. It could change a little bit with the addition or maybe a late leave or something. But we're going to look at Oscar Mayer, Oscar Meyer, jeez, Omar Meyer, Antoine West Jr., Jack Benter, and Fine, I forget his first name, Mr. Fine, Aaron Fine, who is a redshirt freshman for Purdue. Honestly, I didn't even know who Aaron Fine was. I had seen the name, but I didn't know what he's a preferred walk on with the Boilermakers from last year. He did redshirt. Honestly, if you're a preferred walk on, that means you've got some talent. Coach Painter isn't going to just add somebody to add some for the sake of adding somebody, Grant. But do you know anything about Mr. Aaron Fine?
I don't know much outside of the fact that he's from Noblesville, which obviously Indianapolis area school. So he's played with and against some of these
Sure, yeah.
top Indiana players and has some experience there. He scored over 1,000 points in high school. So like you said, he's not a bad player by any means, but you don't really expect him to make an impact, at least in the near future. But at the same time, I mean, you never know. You can take a chance on anybody, and
Right.
you hear stories all the time of walk-ons that come in and earn scholarships because they start making an impact for the team. So, don't want to count anybody out. He again, just having these Indiana area kids, I feel like is good for the program. Purdue, I mean, look at Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, two guys that
Yeah.
played just your IHSAA Indiana high school basketball that are coming in now and are your stars in the backcourt. So. Definitely a good guy, I think, to have on your roster. But like you said, we don't know a lot about him. We don't expect him to really get any minutes this season. But he will be on the team and helping them at least in practices and in the locker room and whatnot.
Well, the most people that are listening / watching, however you're taking in this, knows already the state of Indiana is very fanatical about its high school and then into college basketball. So if you can get a kid who spent his entire life in the Indiana basketball system, such as Aaron Fine, and he scores 1,000 points, there's got to be some value to him. That's the key. Is we may not see it as the normal fan, but like you said, at the very least, he's getting them prepped and ready in the practice, because if he can provide a hot hand for the demo, other side, the practice team, at the very least, that preps the team for other games. So, but he could see some action. I don't know. We just don't know enough about him to say anything other than there's probably very limited minutes. There's a chance that if he hits the floor, it's a blowout one way or another. That's not knocking him. That's just his what we see is probably his role coming this next season. Yeah. And there have been some very, very good walk-ons, preferred walk-ons that have come through Purdue, and they don't get many minutes when it comes to the game time, but they're extremely valued by the team.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, lots of areas to make an impact on a basketball team, on any sports team outside of simply performing in the competition, such as
Hmm.
the basketball court. And I think that's important for a lot of people to remember. And especially in the case of a guy like Aaron Fine, where maybe you aren't going to see many minutes on the court, or at least impactful minutes, you can still make a pretty big impact for your team in other ways. And I expect Coach Painter to try and make sure that he understands that, and I expect him to then make an impact in other ways.
We may not know much, but I darn well know that everyone on that roster, other than Aaron Fine, knows exactly who Aaron Fine is, and
Right.
what he contributes. So I think that's the excuse me, important thing is they know his value, so he's not going to be devalued by somebody like us saying, "Well, we don't know much about him, don't expect much," because he's the behind the scenes guy. Excuse me. So let's move on to our other three. Let's talk about Jack Benter. He was on the roster last year. He redshirted. I thought I remembered seeing him hit a game at the beginning, but evidently he didn't because overall stats, he doesn't have any registered minutes. So I'm going to assume that he redshirted before the season even started. Uh, the scuttlebutt about Jack Benter is he's one of the more athletic guards on the roster, which to me says he's gonna be in a mix for some of those hard fought for minutes off the bench.
Yeah, he's going to be a really interesting guy because I think I've talked about this before, but he kind of reminds me of Cam Heidi,
Yeah,
just in the sense that he redshirted his freshman year. He looked like he was, one of those guys that he was on scholarship and whatnot, but you weren't sure if he was going to make an impact
right.
because you had, in the case of Camden Heidi, he was in the class with Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and some of those guys, and he just didn't seem like one of those top prospects of that class. And you're like, well, maybe this guy just doesn't turn out to really do a whole lot. But even in his redshirt freshman season, Camden Heidi was really important. Was a really nice guy off the bench on that championship runner-up team
Had the
2
highlight of
years
the
ago.
national championship game.
Right, and obviously the putback dunk is what a lot of people know him for. So I would not be surprised at all to see Jack Benter come in and be a significant piece off the bench for Purdue. But like you said, he's going to have to compete for it because there are a lot of guys that can make an impact on this year's roster. Some things I like about Jack Benter, he's a good shooter. Averaged 44% from three his senior year of high school. If what I'm seeing is correct, he scored a lot of points in high school for Brownstown Central. He so obviously he knows how to score. Like you said, he's got some athleticism. I his size doesn't like break any records or anything, so it'll be interesting to see physically how he handles the Division I level of basketball. But I honestly, he was a guy I wasn't really counting on when I started looking at roster pieces for this coming season. You saw the additions. Like I wasn't really thinking Jack Benter, but now just having a guy that could be capable of making an impact when you don't expect it is really exciting. And I think even if he isn't a huge piece this year, down the road he's going to play an impact in their future if he hangs around.
Yeah, he finished 11. He finished his career back when he graduated, the 11th all-time scorer in Indiana basketball history with 2,550 points. That I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not just all about his points, but for somebody that can score like that, that's a big statement. Averaged 7.3 rebounds. High school basketball, when you're 6'5", you're a little bit taller than your matchup, so you're probably going to out rebound. But he had 5.2 assists on average too. Like you said, he shot 30 or 44% from threes, but he can do pretty much the whole bit. He was only a 3-star recruit, but that fits perfectly into what Matt Painter does. He takes the lower starred recruits and turns them into something even more. I guess he shattered a backboard on a breakaway dunk during his junior season. He can put points on the board. He's got some height, I guess, is the best way to put it for somebody that is a guard. He's 6'5", so that comes through as advantageous when you're able to put some height in there. You know, him and Meyer are both 6'5", to where they can maybe post up a smaller point guard and stuff. So I see Benter as being one that is, I guess, the one open starting spot that just adds another cog into, okay, here's another competitor for it, because he's not going to redshirt again, obviously. So he's going to be on the roster. He's going to be playing for it. So that means you've got, we'll talk about West, but you've got West, Benter, Cox, Harris, all kind of vying for, and Meyer even probably in some context, competing for one starting spot. Some see that as an issue. I think I see that as a good thing, because you're going to get everybody's best to try to get that spot filled.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Whoever ends up getting that spot will have worked for it and will be talented enough to do it. Like, you look at those 4 or 5 players, like the odds of one of them having a pretty big breakout season is pretty good.
Oh, for sure.
Whereas, last year relying on Miles Colvin or Cam Heide to do it, just 1 or 2 players that you were like, Purdue really needs them to have a breakout season if they want to be the type of contender that we think they want to be. Now they've got like 4 or 5 guys that could fit that mold. So definitely like the fact that they have those options. It'll make for an interesting decision and path for Matt Painter to figure out how to get those guys minutes and do it in a way that still allows Purdue to play their best basketball. But I do think that the competitiveness and the options that Purdue will have are good. And I think Jack Benter is totally one of those guys. And whenever you have a guy that can score like that, it just, I feel like it kind of raises their ceiling. This is a guy that could end up coming out and being able to average a significant amount of points, maybe get up to double figures, maybe not even next year, but in the next couple of years. This is a guy that can shoot the ball, drive it, you can score at all these levels. And that when you have that kind of a ceiling and you're working with a coach like Matt Painter, you never really know what can happen.
Yeah, and I think Matt Painter's going to be probably pretty open with all those guys that are trying to vie for that one starting spot. Is like, look, we're going to be free flowing with this. It's not going to be, hey, you make a mistake, you're coming out. We may make it to where, unless one just really steps out, if it's a very close competitive battle for that starting spot, I could see Matt Painter saying, we're going to do a start every couple of games rotation unless one of you starts getting hot, and it's because of the way he played some different lineups with different matchups and stuff. I think that leaves his options open when there's a competition going on, especially if it's close. If one of them steps out and just is absolutely far and away better than the others, great. That means you've got the 5 best. But if that's okay, we've got the 4 best, and then 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all kind of around the same, we're going to rotate which one is either A, playing the best, or B, matches up best with the opponent's lineup.
Yeah, and like you said, just because a guy starts a game doesn't mean they're going to get the most minutes. We've seen Purdue and Matt Painter do that all the time, where they start a guy, but they actually only play like 10 minutes because these other guys get really hot and are playing really good basketball. So they just play them most of the game because they're the ones that are playing well. So, they're going to compete for starting spots, but just because you don't start doesn't mean you don't have a chance to play 20 or 30 minutes in a game. And that's the other great thing about Purdue this next season is they're going to have guys that play well some games and don't play well in others. But when you have 10 to 12 guys that can play meaningful minutes, then you're going to probably find a couple that are playing good basketball, and you can just play those guys when they're playing well, and when other guys aren't, and you're going to be fine. And you're going to be more consistent as a team.
Yeah. So on from Mr. Benter to one of the others that we were going to talk, or that we're talking about for that, vying for that last starting spot in the starting lineup. It's the incoming freshman, Antoine West Jr. He is from Whitmer High School in Toledo, Ohio. He's a 4-star recruit coming in as number 76 on ESPN's Top 100 class. this one's a really athletic guard that Matt Painter's bringing in.
Yeah, it's Purdue people have talked about how Purdue doesn't necessarily have a lot of athleticism, especially in their backcourt for this coming season, and that it would be potentially one of their weaknesses or shortcomings, if nothing else. But I think West is kind of contradictory to that, and I think he has a chance to actually play significant minutes. I've seen his highlights. You've seen his description and his rating and stuff, and I think this is a guy. Not only is he athletic, but he can shoot the ball. He can probably defend, or at least is capable of being a good defender. And I think if he turns into the player that he can be, then he's going to really help out this Purdue team. He's going to be kind of like Jakari Harris and C.J. Cox, but might even have a higher ceiling with the way he can score the ball. I mean, Cox has definitely shown his flashes, but Jakari has this past season. I would have liked to have seen him be a little bit more maybe aggressive offensively and be able to do a little more. He basically was reduced to just being a spot-up shooter as far as his offense was concerned. Not to say he didn't do a lot of other good things, but
right.
Just wasn't really a creator. I think West has that in his ability. I don't know if we'll see it much either because he'll be getting limited minutes and we'll be moving up to the D1 level. Like whenever you take a guy from high school and they move up to high-level Division I basketball, you might see a guy who averaged 20-some points a game end up hardly ever scoring because it's just a completely different game. But if he scores the way that he showed in his high school highlights in his high school game, he could really help Purdue, and I think is going to be a really nice add, if not this season, definitely for the future, kind of like we said with Benter.
I don't have a list of his senior stats on this profile, but as a junior, he shot 48% from the 2-point range. Excuse me. 36.7 from 3, and he's an 82.9% free throw shooter. That is huge to me. As his averages, he was a 20.3, 6.3 for rebounds, and 3.8 for assists. And that's again as a junior. But that means he can distribute, just like Benter. He can distribute, he can rebound, and of course he can score, and he does it at a pretty good rate. Now, does that 2% rate need to come up a little bit? Yeah, because I would like to see him scoring more towards or at the hoop. So those should be higher percentage 2-point shots. But 37% or close to 37% from threes. If he can shoot even 30%, that's a good add from the bench at the very least. A good add from the bench for potential 3-point shooting coming off.
Right, and with the team Purdue's going to put together this season with guys like Oscar Clough, Trey Kaufman-Renn, even Daniel Jacobson, they're going to draw a lot of attention in the paint. And so it's going to be really important that the Purdue guys can knock down threes from the perimeter. They're basically the 4 guys that are on the court outside of those guys, or 3 if TKR plays at the 4. Those guys have got to be able to hit open threes.
Right.
That was a huge deal when Zach Edey played at Purdue, was you have to knock down threes because when those double teams come and Zach Edey swarm, he has to be able to spray it out so that defense can kind of basically has to stay honest. And Purdue did a really good job of that 2 years ago of knocking down threes when they got the chance. Yeah. This year has to be the same way. And if Antoine West is going to get minutes, he has to be able to make threes consistently when he's open. But if he can do that, like you said, I think he's going to be a really valuable piece off the bench.
Yeah, it's exciting because he comes in as a 4-star, and that's not because he's a 4-star, so he's going to be so much better. But that just adds the potential because he's so highly rated, and Purdue doesn't normally go get these. They get some 4s, but normally don't get the highly rated, just because. Maybe for whatever reason, maybe Painter doesn't go after them as hard because he knows that the price tag's too high, because Purdue's got money, but they don't necessarily have to spend it just to get the players to come here. They want them to buy into the system as well. But for a highly rated player such as Antoine West Jr., to buy into the system and want to come, knowing what is here when he gets there for his freshman year. You know, he picked Purdue over Nebraska, Dayton, Michigan, and Ohio State. So 3 of the 4 teams that he didn't choose for, or that he turned down and picked Purdue over, he's going to be playing against. So Nebraska, I'm guessing, could have probably given him more playing time, guaranteed him playing time. Michigan, in a rebuild at the time that they were recruiting him, maybe it was Juwan Howard that was recruiting him at the time. I don't know. But then Ohio State, again, they had a coaching change, but still, these are teams that he could have probably gotten some guaranteed playing time compared to coming to Purdue with a loaded roster. It makes me feel like he's in on the culture rather than all about him.
Well, and I think, like Matt, I don't know if Matt Painter has said this or who we've talked to about this, but it comes down to what the player wants compared to what the university wants. And Matt Painter wants guys that are willing to stick around for 4 years and develop and wait their turn if they're not there immediately, and be a culture and team player.
Yep.
Whereas a lot of these 5 stars, top 20, 30, 50 recruits that are in the nation, they're guys that are really looking to try and boost their NBA status and really just focus on their individual
and more power
career.
to them if that's their thing.
Right. And not saying that that's wrong, and not saying that guys like Antoine West don't want to do that. But I think we have said this on the podcast before. There's a difference between doing that through being successful and through your team being able to win basketball games and what you can do to add to your team compared to your stat hunting and you're trying to get your minutes and your shots up and whatnot. There's kind of a difference there. And I think Purdue goes after the guys that want to do that through the team success. And those guys tend to be between 50 to 100 on the ESPN top 100 versus in the top 50.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's move on. And I just clicked on the bio on the Purdue basketball page for Omer Meyer. No information available.
Yeah.
But let's move to Omer Meyer, 6'4", 215, coming in as a freshman from Israel. He is coming from a professional league. There's some differences and with NIL and the ability for players to have been paid for whatever reason when it comes to basketball, there, especially in the Euro transition from Euro to American basketball, they are giving college eligibility. So we get a professional from a foreign league to come into the roster. Grant, this I saw some of the stats. I think he only averaged 2 or 3 points per game in the league, but that doesn't take away some of the highlights that we saw from him in those games. We've got somebody that could be pretty special, and I think we touched upon it the last time, is he gets to sit behind the best point guard in the country for a year and probably play with him at times too, but really be able to really take in how it is to successfully run a college basketball offense.
Yeah, and I think he only played like maybe 1 year in that major Euro league, and then he played for Tel Aviv. I don't even remember how exactly.
It was a step-up league the year before. So I'm talking about the one that he transferred from this last time. He only averaged a couple points.
Which is like you said, professional league. He played against Carson Edwards, who's with Bayern Munich and having a really good year, had a really good year with them.
He was the player of the year in the league, wasn't he?
Yeah,
or at least for the month or something. I don't remember.
But yeah, it's like that's a legitimate league where a lot of really good like college players that couldn't make the NBA go and play over there and stuff like that. So to only average a couple points, like maybe doesn't sound good, but
I'm not damning that at all. He still was in the league,
Yeah, and the experience is really good. And you look at what you check out his highlights with Tel Aviv and all that he's done before that, and this is a good basketball player. He played on the U19 or U18 Israel FIBA World Cup team, or something like that. One of those competitions, those international one. I think it was the Eurobasket, and led them to a third place finish behind like Serbia and Germany or something like that. Like two really good nations that
Right.
are producing really good basketball players right now. And you just watch the way he plays, and he's really like Braden Smith in a lot of ways. The way he runs the pick and roll, the way he shoots and passes. But it's just really exciting for us because once Braden leaves, we know we're going to have somebody to kind of pick up the slack. But it's also exciting for this year because now you have two excellent passers, excellent scorers, guys who just know the game. And one of them is a senior that has been there and done that, and one of them is a young guy that's going to be able to improve a lot throughout the season, especially once he kind of figures out that American game, because there is a difference between how they play basketball in Europe versus
Sure.
America. And we might see an adjustment period, but this guy's going to be a good basketball player.
Well, and the great thing is like I mentioned, he gets to learn how to run that offense from of an American basketball aspect. And like you said, take his time, get immersed into it, and learn it. But then also, he can spell down the road, and towards the end of the year, even he'll be able to spell Braden Smith a little bit to give him some of those very valued rest minutes. I'm not saying 5-6 minutes at a time, but maybe 5-6 minutes total in a game will add up enough to where maybe Braden's going to be all gears firing near the end of the season when it really, really matters the most. So I don't have doubt that Braden's going to be able to do it even if he was playing 40 minutes a game. But why not if you can? And I think Omer Meyer is going to be that one that near the end of the season, they're going to be like, okay, we need you to take 3-4 minutes or whatever and run this offense so Braden can get himself some rest and get you some experience. I think it's a double-edged benefit there is you preserve your senior's energy, and you get that freshman going for next year and later on in the season as well.
The offense will not collapse anymore when Braden Smith comes out of a game.
Right.
Like that was kind of what was happening is Braden Smith would come out and Purdue would just be all out of sorts. Now, like you said, Omer Meyer can come in and do that. They can spell him and give him some rest. Also, if Braden Smith gets into foul trouble, we saw that against Ohio State when they lost.
Yeah.
He got in foul trouble, and it was rough while he was out, but it was also rough when he came back in because he was out of rhythm. Those are things that hopefully won't happen. Even if Braden Smith does get out of rhythm because of foul trouble, Omer Meyer will help supplement that to make sure that they can still play winning basketball, even if Braden Smith is having an off night. And Smith doesn't have a lot of off nights, but you just know that if it doesn't happen, it definitely could happen. And you want to have a contingency in place of that. And Omer Meyer is a huge part of that contingency for Purdue.
You don't feel and we haven't seen him play a minute of college basketball yet. But with the context of you using, we just didn't know where the offense was going when Braden Smith had to sit, foul trouble. It was almost like we were putting the car on cruise control and the driver was moving out of the driver's seat. We didn't know where in the world the car was going. It was rudderless, but now with what we've seen with Meyer, that what he can do and has done in Europe, maybe he's a permit driver, still learning, but he can at least keep us from driving off the side of the road. And I think that would be, to me, the best way to kind of think about it, humorously or not, is now we've got at least a permitted driver in there able to do some things that isn't going to keep the car from isn't going to make the car drive directly in or off into a ditch. It's just it's nice to have that security blanket in case Braden Smith does have that off night.
Yeah, Meyer has the talent to do that, and then you got Fletcher Lawyer, who will be able to help in the backcourt with all that experience, and Jakari Harris, CJ Cox, you have another year. Like, you just have a lot more experience and solidarity in your backcourt to just keep that car moving, like you said, even when Braden Smith's not in the game. And then, again, it always helps when you have big men to throw to. Like, as long as you can get that ball across half court and move it around the perimeter and just throw it into TKR or Oscar Clough, and let those guys go to work, they're going to be able to find ways to score even without a guy like Braden Smith. And then defensively, again, like I think Omar Myers can be able to play some good defense. I think he's a smart basketball player, and whether he's in the game without Braden, with Braden, he's just going to add another dynamic for this Purdue team that's going to make them really hard to figure out, because there's so many things they can do to you, so many different ways they can defend and score and win basketball games. That's why they're basically a top 2 or even number 1 team in the country by most standards.
Whether Omar Meyer knew it or not, he stepped into a great environment to be able to, just like you just highlighted, he's got so much experience surrounding him coming into this. Excuse me, that failure would be almost harder than success. Like, if you're working towards getting better, this situation you're stepping into, being surrounded by Harris, Cox with the as the sophomores, Benter in there, he's gonna. I mean, and I'm not silly enough to think that everybody's gonna be best friends with one another, but I think they're all working towards the same goal. So I think the fact that then you have all the seniors that he's surrounded by, including Lawyer and Smith, in the position he plays. He's walking into a situation that I don't know could have been any better any other place.
Yeah, I think it shows a lot of maturity on his part. I know I'm saying this as a Purdue fan.
Right.
Yeah, obviously, but you're mature because he chose you to Purdue.
Well,
but
smart people do that.
Right. And I think it is a mature choice, because he's going to, he could have gone. I think Auburn was interested. A couple other, maybe Duke was interested. Like, there were other teams within the college level that maybe have a higher brand than Purdue, at least like most people might say that.
None of them have the Bob Cousy Award winner returning, though, either.
Right. And that's where I think the maturity comes in, because he's looking at a team like Purdue where he can stay for a couple years and develop under a really good basketball coach. He can play with experienced guys, Braden Smith, namely, because he's the player that Omar Meyer could turn into.
Maybe,
but also,
home
like
ring
you said,
the first year.
Right. Like you've also got 6 seniors on this team that have a lot of experience, between transfers that have come from smaller schools, between 3 guys that played a national championship team. You're going to be able to learn a lot, grow a lot as a player, have some fun while you're at it, and win basketball games. And then eventually, depending on his development, he'll be able to go to the league and set up his career there. So this is the kind of choice that I would like to see more of these top prospects do, is be willing to wait a couple years, learn from people. Just because you have the talent doesn't mean you have to go to the league immediately. You can take some time and right, especially when you can make NIL money, and just develop as a player, learn some things, get the mind there as well as the body, and then you can go to the league and set yourself up for a nice career.
People talk about how, Purdue needs to start opening up the checkbook, get better players. I honestly think Zach Edey doesn't come back for his last year, even though they get beat by a 16 seed, if he can't make money. I think Braden Smith's in the league going, even though he's a second round projection, is going to the league if he can't make money at Purdue. So I'm not at all saying thank goodness for NIL. There are many, dark areas for NIL that I don't like. But at the very least, Braden Smith can make a lot more money at Purdue and develop into, and greedily, as a fan, I get to watch him one more year in my team's uniform. But he's also not ready yet. A second round projection, great. That you're in the league, but a lot of those guys either get cut or end up in. And no offense to the people that are in Euro leagues and things, because we know a lot of great players that are there. Either cut, Euro leagues, or G League is where a lot of those second round players end up. That's not a knock on that progression, but if you can develop one more year at the college level and come in as a low first round or even a high first round projection, you've improved your projection. You still made a lot of money.
Yeah, I can tolerate some of the NIL
Yep.
stuff because I know that it helps players stick around in college. And that's really fun. I like you said, as a fan, but also because I think it's good for those players to stick around in college a little bit more. So yeah, I don't love NIL and what's happening either, but that is one benefit that allows me to
You're
tolerate some
finding
of
the
those other
silver
things.
lining.
Right. Yeah. That's I'm a huge silver lining guy. Okay.
Yep. I as well. Yeah. So these freshmen, redshirt or not, they're going to be, and we don't know. Maybe Antoine West does redshirt. We don't know. Maybe Omer Meyer redshirts. We don't know. I doubt it for either one of those, but you just don't know. Those conversations either A, might take place later, or they already have. We don't know. We're not privy to that. We shouldn't know that. That's an internal thing. But with the way things are looking, they very well could have a roster of 14 and all of them play at some extent. There might be some DMPs for somebody, on some games, but I think there will be 13 to 14 contributing players, or let's say 12 to 13 that we know of, contributing players on a regularity that have 5-6 minutes a game. And that's going to be pretty impressive if you can go that deep.
Yeah, I mean, Trey Kaufman-Renn redshirted his freshman year, and he was a pretty highly rated recruit. He and Caleb First came in at the same time. Trey Kaufman-Renn redshirted, Caleb First did not, and now he's an All-American with one more year left. So just because a guy comes in rated well and expected maybe to contribute doesn't mean he won't redshirt. And like you said, I wouldn't be surprised to see – I would be surprised to see Omer Meyer redshirt. Maybe not Antoine West. Like I could see that happening. Doesn't mean I think it's going to happen, but I could see it happening easier than Omer Meyer. But like you said, any of that can happen, and you just need to kind of be ready for it and keep an eye out for it.
I think why I think Omer Meyer is less likely is because he fits a need in the aspect of somebody to back up Braden Smith and spell him a few minutes per game. Antoine West, unless he blows the doors off somebody, fits into a mold that we literally just talked about 4 other guys being in. That's not a knock on him, but that could help him. The door opens up after this next season too. So no, I'm not speculating that he is going to redshirt. It's just, it is a possibility. I could see that being a possibility as we get closer to tip off for the season next year. So, but Grant, it's the end of the Tuesday episode, off-season Tuesday. That's what we'll call it, or Tuesday off-season schedule. Yeah, but the Tuesday edition of Boilermaker Lounge. Friday, we will have Dustin Schutte in. We're going to talk about the women's basketball program there at West Lafayette. Coach Gerald's rebuilding some, but we want to talk to Dustin Schutte about what she's got cooking right now on the roster. Kind of what our outlook might be going forward as the women prepare for the 25-26 basketball season as well.
Yep, definitely looking forward to that and be able to cover them a little bit more this next year.
For sure. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this Tuesday edition. For Grant Flora, I'm Sam Springer. We'll talk to you on Friday.